Hello, good evening, everybody. So today we have the amazing and wonderful Tonia G in the house, and she is talking to us about all things money related. Oh, my phone has started repeating. Hang on. And so today we're going to be looking at your money story. So this is all about how you can be in harmony and have balance in terms of your relationship with money. And what we're hoping to be able to do is help you to switch any negative money beliefs that you have and flip the switch so that you have a much more positive money script, so that the things that you are saying around money, the way that you view money, is much more supportive to the kind of lifestyle that you want to be living. And it's essentially all about empowering your beliefs and a blend of the practical stuff along with the energetic side. Both are so important in my view. And Tonia has been doing this work for a very, very long time. I'm just going to bring her in to gallery view. Hi, Tonia.
Hello.
Hi. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to do with us today. Have I missed anything? Any important points?
No, it's all there, and then whatever else was it, I'm sure will get filled in along the way as we are speaking. But a lot of just what was going on and what we're going to work with today is the money beliefs, but it's also the money story of what all the clients that I've worked with. There is this unconscious story running in the background that we are not aware of, but it's what we're creating our money situation out of. And so anytime I start working with any of my clients, it's not on the logical side of a budget or doing anything like that. It's about getting clear around the story and finding out, like, what is it that you say about money? You know, when you're paying your bills, what's the story? Is it, oh, I hate doing this. Oh, I never have enough money. This all goes into our money story and what it is that we are creating when it comes to money. So today I want to teach on becoming aware of what the money story is, because usually it's a very unconscious one, and then learning how to just flip that script in turning a negative statement into a positive one, because our words carry, when going into, the logical and then the spiritual side of it, our words are how we manifest. And so what we say carries a lot of importance. So it's really getting clear around how we speak about money so that money starts coming in and starts playing with us, and we start to have like a harmonious relationship with money. So the money story is like part one of just getting that whole system and relationship started with money.
Okay, great. So one of the things that you shared in your intro video was that many years ago you decided to walk away from money. And I understood that as you walking away from money as a career, but I wonder whether it was any deeper than that. And can you expand a bit more on it?
I can. It actually, there is two different versions of that. So at that point, when I wrote it down in the interview, I did walk away from money as a career. At that point, when I did open up my business, previously before that, I don't know how much I elaborated on it. I was an assistant finance director for a nonprofit. And before that, I was an operation manager for a title company. Before that, I worked in a bank. So I was always dealing with money transactional and in the corporate world. And I was just like, I don't want to deal with working with money anymore in the sense of my job. And then two, I also didn't want to be working in corporate anymore and in that transactional way of looking at money. And so I decided to do professional organizing. I was like, I'm totally stepping out of the money world altogether and just going into something that I love to do, which was organizing, and something I felt like if I had to just do it over and over again. And the question I asked myself is like, when I'm bored, what do I love to do? And I can organize for days. And I'm like, well, if people are paying me to do this, then I'm always going to be happy. And so it was walking away from money as an industry of what I did, even though now here I am doing it again. So it called me back in. But there was a point, which I didn't share in the video, but I had my own business and I actually had to fire myself from my own business because I was doing bookkeeping. and I wasn't happy again. And then that's when I literally had to walk away from the money that I was making at bookkeeping and getting really real with myself that I wasn't happy with the amount of money that I was making, even when I had my own business. And when I did work for corporate, like I was making a really good salary. Like part of the conversation was, how much is my happiness worth? And, is it worth it to stay in a secure job that I am miserable at, knowing that I'm going to pay my bills? Or do I take the risk and live a happy life, knowing and trusting that eventually I will work my way back up to that salary? And so there's a lot of different components that came in, but I chose my happiness because the pattern kept hitting. I kept switching jobs. And I'm like, I don't want to be in the same pattern. I just want to switch the story altogether. And so, yeah, I decided to go with happiness, knowing that, and what I teach now, that money follows happiness. And so when we do follow that, the money does come after that, and trusting in that.
I can definitely relate to that exact internal conversation between, sticking with the corporate salary or, heading towards happiness and following your bliss or your joy is the cheesy line that everyone hears, but it's so true. Yeah. And I know for me, I had to make a huge decision, which was, I was on a great salary in engineering. I'd worked my way, you get pay rises every so often, all of that sort of stuff. And when I wanted to shift careers, I really was struggling about what to do, because I had to give up potentially this high salary and go back to being a beginner again, which is, it's not an easy decision to make.
No.
And you go because, and people will tell you, like, oh, better the devil, and, how could you give up that security, and don't be a fool, just be glad to have a job. You don't know how hard it is to get a job until you don't have one. All of these lines,
Yes.
So many different money stories, right?
Yes, there is, where I'm smiling ear to ear, like all the illusions. Yeah.
And then, I made this choice of, actually, my happiness matters more. And the funniest thing happened, as you say, the money does follow the happiness, because for me, I made the switch to a career that was in training people around sustainability. So it was getting myself towards, my goal was always to work for myself and be doing career coaching and leadership coaching, that sort of stuff. But I needed a stepping stone, and my stepping stone was, okay, well, I've done engineering, let's get a job doing some kind of coaching or training in related to engineering, because that's my stepping stone, right? And what the funniest thing happened was, I went for the interview. They offered me more money than they'd said in the job to begin with, which was still 10 grand less than what I'd been at. Well, maybe even 15. I can't remember now. It was over 10 grand less than what I'd been on previously, which was a big drop. Plus I was moving to London, the capital, so my costs were going to go up. And I was like, everyone was telling me I was mad. And then, so I get in this job, and within 6 months, I'm like doing way more than the role, because I just love it. And I keep getting asked to do more and more. And then at 9 months, they're like, hey, we're going to promote you. So I'm like, great. And they're like, it's not going to happen for a few months though. So I was like, okay. 12 months comes, and they interview me for the promotion. I get the promotion, I get the salary rise, and they backdate it 6 months, because they're like, well, you've already been doing the job. And this salary, I'm within 12 months back on the same salary I was before, which logically I would have said never could have happened. Not in a million years would that happen. But when you love what you do, the money really does follow. And this is the, like, I'm not that religious, but I know a lot of people know many lines. It's in our culture, right? This line about, it's easier for a rich man, I can't remember the exact thing, but something like, it's easier for a rich man to more difficult, for a rich man to become spiritual than it is for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle, something like that. The eye of the needle. I'm doing a terrible job of giving this quote.
I'm not going to know which one it is. I know I'm terrible at remembering anything. That's why I'm like, I would love to support you on that one. I'm like, I don't know what it is. But no, it's like, there's a story to everything though, about difficulty and what it takes, and then positive ones, right? To support it in doing what it is that you want. And I think that's the whole point, is like the power is actually in your hands, and it's in our hands. Whatever, there's every version of everything out there. If you choose to see the positive and things that are going to support the story of what you want, like that's what you're going to start attracting in. But if you tend to focus on the negative and all of the, what were you just saying? Better the devil you know, and you're crazy for doing this. And it's like, well, if you choose to focus on that, you're just going to have more of that. And then, like, that's the real power about changing your story around, is that when you flip, you get to choose the narrative that you want to be in. Like, we don't get to control our reality, but we get to control how we choose to experience it and what we choose to put our focus and our energy on. And this is a big thing that I talk to people about. When you hear the word scarcity and abundance, that's all scarcity and abundance is. Like, scarcity is just seeing all that doesn't exist. Abundance is just seeing all that you have. And when you choose to be in one of those two places, you either attract more scarcity or abundance. And it's just by the way that you think. It has absolutely nothing to do with money and the value, like the amount of money. And I think that that's a big illusion, another story that's out there, that you need to have a certain amount of money to be abundant. And it's not. It's a way of being. It's the way of viewing the word, not a monetary amount. The word has now been used a lot in the coaching world and just in the world, like, oh, 7 figures and be abundant, or just abundance being monetary or being attached to materialistic things. And it's absolutely not. It's not that at all. So yeah, it's interesting how when you want to make a shift and really take a leap, the different things that start seeping in of oh, you're crazy to do that. And I always say, yeah, if you're ready to take a leap, embrace being crazy, because that's what it's going to take in the best way possible.
Yeah, get used to being in that zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And totally just one of the things that I've noticed, particularly when people want to start a business, let's say, not just change career, although it does come up with that as well, but particularly when people say, I'm going to start a business, they talk to other people who are afraid to do that. And then that story gets projected onto them, right? So, other people will always steer you away from the things that they are afraid of.
Yes.
So you have to make sure that you have to be very careful about what stories you actually choose to pick up. Are you picking those stories up from people who are, educated, really know what they're talking about? Or are you picking those up from people who've never even tried this stuff? People whose stories have stopped them from being fully expressed in some way.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I love with the story that you shared, was just seeing how you kind of had no plan in place, in a way of like no expectation of the money. You were just following what you love, which meant that you were open. So you were limitless with the possibilities, but yet we don't see it that way. We think, oh, we have to have the plan and it's the money first, then we act. And it's quite the opposite. It's, you have to have the faith first. Yeah, know what your numbers are. And, that's a whole other thing. I mean, when I work with money, I work with the intuitive side and the practical side. So I'm all about budgets and everything. But once you have that, put it in a drawer and don't look at it, and now follow what it is that you love. Because of, like you said, when you're doing what you love, there's an energy behind you that just happens to have you saying yes to things that you normally wouldn't. And there's a contagious energy that you just get sort of like rewarded. And before you knew it, within a year, you were right back to where you are. And if a year before that, you tried to plan that, you wouldn't have known that that was going to happen. So it is really embracing the unknown. And the other thing that it's one of my money mantras is just getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that quote. I think it's applicable to so many areas of life as well, not just money. Mm-hmm. And so we have a couple of people are adding in the group some of the sayings that they've got. One of them is best quote I've heard is leap before you look. Yep. So leap before you look. So that's about losing that sense of logic, I guess, and take the leap and then assess what needs to happen, right?
Exactly.
Really great example of a positive one there. What else have we got? People laughing at me because they didn't understand my analogy. The point I was trying to make with that, just coming back to it, was that what I deeply believe in what I've learned is that the thing that holds us back from taking the leap, to use Maria's quote, leap before you look, the thing that held me back personally was that I was stuck chasing not necessarily materialistic things, but things that weren't in my heart and soul. So things that I thought I needed and wanted in order to be happy. And so often what truly makes us happy is different to what we think makes us happy. Have you found that too? I can hear you nodding and saying yes.
Yes, absolutely. And that was a hard one to really learn because I mean, professional organizer, logic is my mode of transportation, controller. I love all of that. I mean, that's why I originally went into doing money, because 1 + 1 is 2 and no one could dispute that. Like, it's logical, it makes sense. And then you just get into this world and it's like, not, it's not the case. It's actually just going forward and knowing that everything else is sort of gonna kind of like conspire and like come in and take that all in. So it's hard because the plan is great to have, but it's on paper. And if you just live on paper without putting it into practice, this is why action is such a huge thing to do, and why it does the quote that Maria said, like, leap, I think, leap and then look back. You have to leap, because what you are making up in your head might not actually be something that you want, because what you have in your head and what you experience in life are two totally different things. One is just an expectation versus actually getting it and then realizing, like, oh my God, I didn't want to be a project supervisor for this company, and I thought this was the next job that I wanted, because I don't want that level of responsibility. Actually, it's something else. But until you experience it, it's going to live as just this methodical thing that we create in our head. And what we create in our head is not the reality of what the actual experience is. And a lot of that happens with money too, where, you get the house, you get the car, you get all of these different accolades, and we equate that to happiness. And then we get them, and maybe for a moment it brings us happiness, but then 6 months later it turns into a headache. There's a mortgage, there's all this other stuff, and the happiness is now gone. Well, it's because money doesn't create happiness. We do that for ourselves. Money is just a tool. And so it is a really big thing to an illusion that I found in working with people, of separating the two, where it's like, yes, money is a great tool to get things that make you happy, but they don't sustain your happiness. It's just a byproduct of it. It's not money, and money does not equal happiness. Like, that's something that we get to do for ourselves. So that's a huge, huge one that I think a lot of people get to, and maybe may experiencing now in their careers, of like wanting to change and learning, like, I'm following this list, I'm following this game plan, but my happiness isn't really there anymore. My heart's not behind it. And so realizing that there's a new way that the world's not embracing, of just like doing what you love and the money will follow, versus like vice versa.
I can so relate to that. I mean, I know for me, the point at which my engineering career got unfun for me was the point when I hit the salary that I'd been aiming at since I was 14, right? So I got there, I got to my dream, and I looked around and was like, oh, there's got to be more to life than this.
Yes.
And that's the moment where I stopped chasing the money and realized I had to chase something else. And that something else, it wasn't clear. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I want? Why don't I know what I want? I had all of these stories to work through.
Yep.
So just before we go on to break into your session a little bit more, I had one final thing that I wanted to bring up, which was, I know that in the last recession, you went through a really tricky situation. I think it was with your mortgage and your home. But can you tell us that story? So for anyone that's sitting here and thinking, this all sounds wishy-washy, and really, is that what you've got to do? Tell us that low point for you and what happened in the decisions that you made.
Yeah. Part of the high salary that I had, or I needed to maintain, or the amount of the salary based off of my expenses, a lot of it came into my mortgage. And it was a house that I had bought in Pennsylvania that I had as like a vacation home that I was just having out there, but I had the mortgage on that. And I'm going through my expenses, and now I'm not even in this home anymore, and I just have all of these expenses. And so as I'm looking at what I want to create for my dream, I do lean on my logical side of looking at what the numbers are, right? Like just taking out everything else. And just there was, the mortgage, the taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the condo dues, and just the amount of expenses that were associated to that house. And I'm like, is this house really worth me not going for my dreams? And at this point, it was already the recession, and the value of my house had dropped a lot, because during that time, that was the housing during the housing bubble. So I was also now paying a mortgage on a house that devalued so much. So I was, even if I sold the house at that moment, I would actually owe the bank money on my mortgage because of the way the value dropped on it. So it became a question of, do I default on my mortgage and stop making the payments on it and follow my dreams and do that, and know that I'm gonna, and I had a perfect credit score at that point. Like, I very much so valued responsibility and having it, the 800 credit score and following the rules and everything else. But the banks also got bailed out. The bailout really didn't pass along to people, and so there was a lot of different things where I just started to learn, yes, there are rules, but those rules didn't get passed on to me. Like, the banks got that bailout, but when I called the bank for relief for my mortgage, or for them to, I think it's called like a mortgage adjustment that they had, they were like, no, you're making your payments, we're not going to do that to you. Like, nothing was passed along. And I'm like, okay, are these rules that are supporting me and that I want to follow and are going to make me have my dreams? Or do I start creating my own rules in my life of what it is that I want to do? And I'm not saying break against the system, and there's certain things, but I think that there are a lot of societal norms of, like, if you don't make a payment, you're unreliable, or you're not responsible, or all of these other things, that it was really hard, and actually really hard for me to talk about this story, especially after I decided to become a money expert. And meanwhile, on there, you're going to see a foreclosure on my credit report. But I was like, that was something that I chose to do, and I still stand behind it, because I wouldn't be where I am if I did that. And I feel like sometimes you do have to break the rules in order to have what it is you want, but it's got to be something that you're at peace with, and that you feel comfortable with, and that you're doing for yourself and not for, anyone else. But it's a hard decision to make, but I think it's one of, what's your heart telling you? And if you're coming from a place of integrity still, and doing this to better yourself, and not trying to scheme and scam or anything else, and it's really to better serve, and to be a go off and follow your heart, and to do something better, then I don't think that it's a bad thing. And I think that, following your heart is really the thing to do, even if, in the societal norms, you're going to look bad on your credit report, you're going to be unreliable, or, people might not want to give you a loan because you don't keep your word. And that's just one norm of it. And so it's really taking in what it is that you want to create, and looking if you're willing to do that. The other thing is too, I also look at worst case scenario, what was going to happen. My credit score was going to be bad. So yes, I was aware that if I wanted to lease something, that if I wanted, I also understood the consequences of it. And that the game is, when you have to have a credit report for certain things that you buy and what plays into it. And I was like, I'm willing to also forfeit all that. And if I want to get something, I'm going to find a way. If I need a car, then maybe I'll just buy a used car. But I went through all of the steps of what my decision, at least the ones I could think of, the consequences of it, knowing that whatever it was, I was going to deal with at that time, and I wasn't going to be bitter about it. I was just going to figure it out, because that's what I'm going to do at this point. So it was just also being real about what it was that I was doing, and then taking responsibility of that choice and what it is, and standing by it, and just like, being proud of that.
I think, this is a subject that comes up time and time again with particularly I find with people who are starting businesses. It's so important to really understand and see money as a tool, and get through some of these stories, because when you look at the people who are held up as the great entrepreneurs, and I'm not saying necessarily that they are, but when you think of the Richard Bransons and the Elon Musks of the world, there was a point in time when Elon Musk was in debt to the tune of I think it was like $500 million, something like that, something crazy, some crazy amount that is an amount that most of us can't even imagine, let alone like be able to hold space to have that level of debt and not feel terrified, So the other thing is, like, when things are in transition in life, it can often have consequences on homes, cars, loans of all sorts. And it's very easy to take on these negative stories of this makes me a bad person, it makes me a failure. And we see debt as this thing that, you know, you should never fault on debt. But the reality is it is a system, and the system does allow for that. And yet there's a huge social stigma with it. So I just wanted to bring that up in case anyone's going through that right now, because I know that financially everybody's in turmoil, our jobs are changing, our businesses are changing, you know. And I just want to say to anyone who is going through that, you don't have to take that story on. It doesn't mean that the whole of you is bad. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. These are just things that happen sometimes, and it's as a consequence of the economy. And like Tonia said, you know, the banks and the businesses all get bailed out. The only people that don't are the individuals. So you've got to be smart, and you've got to not take it personal, almost treat it like a business transaction in the way that you view it. So enough from me. I think it's time to hand over to you. Thank you for bearing all my questions and sharing your story to that degree. It's an amazing story. I think that your whole journey it's brought up so many interesting points and so much I can certainly resonate with. So I hope it does for other people as well. If you're in the group watching live, do give us some likes or some hearts just now so that we know that you are enjoying it, and send Tonia some love as she goes into this section now. So I'm going to take myself off and leave you on speaker view, Tonia.
Oh, great. Thank you. Right. Hello, everyone. And thank you for showing up today, or for those who are just watching the recording. But I'm just super excited to share with you. I'm going to go through money story today and money beliefs. But first, I just want to, I know we went through my story, but just introduce myself a little bit of what it is that I do and how I got here, and the money methodology that I do teach, so that you just get a little bit more of an understanding of when it comes to money. And so what I do is I just teach people to take their money pain and turn it into a story and into a life well lived. Money is a tool. Money is neutral. Money is just a way to say thank you. It is a form of love. It is gratitude. I am totally here to teach people a new way with money, and that it's an actual positive one. But in order to get there, we have to address all of the things that aren't being spoken about when it comes to money. And that's all the negativity that's around it. Money is also a very taboo topic that doesn't get talked about. And so there's a stigma around it. So how are we supposed to learn about money, and that everyone has money problems? It's not just a you individual thing if we're not talking about it. So it's about starting up conversations about money. Money is an emotionally charged topic. The two big things that happen around money is guilt and shame. And so a lot of what it is that I'm doing is to just bring this money awareness, because it is freeing ourselves from all of the stories that have been attached to money. Like, you know, I'm sure if you want to write it in the chat, there's like, money is the root of all evil, and money doesn't grow on trees. And the statements go on and on about money being this negative thing, but it's actually not. Money is neutral. We get to choose the energy that we put behind money. And so through my years of working with people, what ended up happening was a money story. Well, not a money story, a money methodology came through. I always say I'm a money whisperer. Money was like showing me something. And as you heard earlier in my story, I totally walked away from money. I was like, I am not doing this anymore. I don't want to deal with money. It's such a heavy topic. Why would I want to take this on for myself? Like, I'm leaving it. I'm going. I'm going to do organizing, and I'm going to start from there. And as I would go in and organize people's homes, I would just see duplicates of things or things with tags on it. And I would hear my client talking about how they can't do the things that they want to do. They can't go on vacations, or they can't save because they don't have the money to do that. And yet I'm seeing duplicates of things, and my mind, unaware, was just adding up the cost of that. And well, if you know, there's $10 there, and well, if there's two of those, there's $3 there. And so I just asked the question of, do you know what your numbers are? Do you know what your expenses are? Do you know what your income is? And so they didn't. And so I started to do organizing of the paperwork. And then that turned into financial organization. And so what ended up happening is through following the breadcrumbs, a methodology of money started to come through, and I call them the 5 Fs. And I'm just going to give you a quick revision of this because I think it's important in seeing the overall story of money. Like, we're going to go into the money beliefs. That's part of the first part, focus. But I want you to know that there's a whole these stages. So as you, after, you leave this, and after we're done doing our work together this week, you're going to continue along the journey. I want you to start being able to recognize where you are in things, because the unknown is what can be scary when it comes to money. And when we know and we could identify it, it makes it easier for us to problem solve. And so I want you to be aware when it comes to money. And so the 5 Fs that I have with money is focus, foundation, freedom, flow, and the 5th one is fun. And I always say it, fun exists in every one of the stages. If you are not having fun in any one of them, that needs to be changed immediately. Another illusion that's out there, and it goes along with the stories, is that we have to obtain our goal in order to celebrate. And if anyone has heard the saying, it's like, it's about the journey, not the destination. And so it's really starting to learn how to celebrate the things that we do along the way, and to also celebrate the mistakes and the failures, because then that means that we leapt. It means that we went for things. It means that we risked. And so fun really exists in it all. And what happens in the focus stage is the money history and the money beliefs, which we're going to do right now. And really what I focus on in this stage is about identifying. So in this stage, it's about identifying all of your numbers. So do you know what your expenses are? Do you know what your income is? Do you know what your debt is? Do you know how much you have in your savings? And do you know all of your accounts? And so what this does is it flips the story of I don't know, because a lot of people, like, because of the disorganization, I don't know what my numbers are. I don't know what my savings are. I don't know what my debt is. I don't know what my APR is. And the thing is, you're giving your power away to money when you're choosing to say, I don't know. So we want to change that real quick by identifying all of these things. And then from here is where you could start creating a plan. Because when you know, you can make the choices of defaulting on your mortgage. But how are you going to do that if you didn't know what that monthly expense is or what it is that you need to live? So this is the part where you can control and identify, and having the information helps you choose, which goes into the second part, is now planning. And that's what foundation is about. Here is where we move into your vision and planning. And we could do that now because we know what your numbers are. And so, right, that's what the foundation is about. We're laying down a new money foundation to start building off of. And another thing I tell people to do when you start working on money is anchor into a new vision of what it is that you create. Because in the beginning, when you're trying to clean up your money, some uncomfortable feelings are going to come up. So you really want to anchor into what that vision is to pull you through and to motivate you to do the work and to continue cleaning up your finances, identifying your numbers, knowing that you're doing this because you want that new job. You're doing it because there is that thing that you're going to do that you love, and that's what's going to pull you through to do that. And then it's coming up with the plan of, what are my monthly expenses? What is the income that I need? What's the bare minimum amount that I need in order to live right now, so that you know that that's your number? Because when you do know, that's how we start to attract. And so this can be more on the logical side. And then once we have the plan and we have the vision, you move into freedom. And the way we become free around money is by taking action. It's what we spoke about earlier with Holly too, in what we experience and what we think the plan is going to be and what the actual reality of that situation is are two totally different things. We're not going to know that until we put the plan into action. So freedom is about putting that plan into action. And this is a big part that I love to sort of give people the heads up. When you start taking action on the new money plan, your beliefs and your emotions start to come up. So guilt could come up, shame could come up, debt, all of these stories that we didn't know before. So more stories will come up. That's why we're going to go over learning how to flip your script, because throughout, things are going to come up. But I want to warn you that a lot of people feel so much shame, or they think they're doing something wrong because they feel guilt, because they feel shame. And I'm just here to say, like, no, everyone experiences that. Every one of my clients that I work with have emotions around money, if it's not in the form of anger, of guilt, of shame. So for anyone who's listening and is kind of just like talking down on themselves when it comes to how you're viewing your finances, just stop, because everyone has a version of that and a way of doing it. And that's why this stage that has to deal with the emotions is called freedom. Because once we accept these emotions, there is this freedom that starts to come up. It's sort of, how Holly mentioned with my story with my mortgage. I choose to free myself from the story that I would be, delinquent in any of my payments after that, or whatever stories society was going to give me. I choose to create a different story for myself. And so being free of your emotions allows you to really move forward in a place of freedom with your money, and learning that money is just a tool. That now brings you into flow. And this is where like all the law of attraction starts to happen. This is where I mentioned earlier, we really start to embrace living from a place of abundance and not in a space of scarcity. So Holly also mentions, when you are telling people your dream, be very careful of who you choose to share this information with. Is it someone who's a reliable source who has done this themselves and is going to give you information that's going to support you and inspire you, which is abundant? Or are you sharing this with someone who's coming from a fear story? That's scarcity. So be very aware of where you get your information from, and there was a story about the wolf and which one you feed. And so is it the negative one or is it the positive one? And so being in flow, we start to learn how to use the greatest tool, which is ourselves, and learning to create the happiness for ourselves. And so, yeah, money is a tool, but it's only as good as the greatest tool, which is ourselves, and how we choose to yield that and empower ourselves to do things and realize like we have the power to create our own happiness. And when we come from that place, that's when money starts to come in with ease and it starts to flow in. And so fun just gets created on all of those. And so I always like to just share all of that so that people understand that, it's not just creating the plan. And once you create the plan, everything is going to fall into place. It's not, it's then into action. There's stages that money goes through, and they're rinse and repeat. And so they keep happening. And so I just like to share that so that people understand that it's an evolving process. And so just to be patient with yourselves, be kind with yourself as you're going along with it, because it's not an easy one. And the general message of money from the world is a very negative one. It is one of scarcity. So when you're doing this work, again, just really be kind with yourself, be patient with yourself. You're doing a great job, and just celebrate the little wins that you have. Like, you're on this call right now, celebrate that. Celebrate that you're here, that you're willing to take this on. And because we always choose to celebrate when you get the job, or when we get the raise, or when we get, no. It's all about when you're scared of something and you just showed up to it. It's in the simplicity of things and celebrating ourselves that really makes the difference. And that's what creates the sustainability and has you moving forward. It's in the baby steps. And so now we're going to move into, and Holly shared it with you guys in the work experience Facebook group. And so this sheet is called Money History. So you're going to see here that there's a whole bunch of questions. And I would like you all to do that tonight as like your homework to finish filling it out. But what I really want to, and we'll go through this on Thursday of just going through the sheet with any questions that you have. But what I really want to focus on for these last like 20 minutes, 15 minutes that we have together is really teaching you the tool of flipping the script on your money stories. And so that is going to question number 10. And what it has, and what I say is, list out 5 negative money conversations you have, and then I want you to rewrite them into healthy money conversations. So first, we're just going to focus on writing down 5 negative money conversations. So as I'm saying this right now, anyone who's watching live, I want you to take a piece of paper out, and I want you to just start writing down 5 negative money conversations you have around money. If you want to share them in the Facebook group, you're more than welcome to as well, and just, have things come up. The other thing is, sometimes when asked on the spot about money conversations or negative ones, people could have a tendency of blanking out and not knowing what they are. So the thing that I tell is, think of when you pay your bills, think of when you're spending the money, think of, mainly when you're paying your bills, what's the conversation you have happening? Or that's why I prompt with question number 1. What challenges do you face in getting financially organized? Because that could be, oh, I'm no good at saving. Oh, I'm not good at creating a budget. Oh, I don't know where my money goes. all of these are negative money conversations. So you could just use that question of what your challenge is in getting financially organized. And then you could see that those are already negative money conversations, and just start writing those down. And so I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to just start jotting things down. And then if you have any questions, just put them in the Facebook group. And then, yeah, Holly can let me know what questions are coming up, and I'll be more than happy to answer them regarding the, the negative conversations, or if you're struggling with coming up with 5 of them.
Thanks, Tonia.
You're welcome.
One thing that came up for me straight away was a statement that's a question. So one of the questions that comes up, and I don't know if this is negative or not, is, can I afford this? But it comes up even when I know I can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So is that classed as something to put down? Because other people might
absolutely.
have something similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Because that's then a story that you have that's always coming up of, can I afford this? It doesn't matter if it comes in the form of a question, in a statement. It's just, that's
so
perfect.
We've got one from the group. Thank you for sharing. We would love to hear from more of you. We know you're there, so do be brave, because this is your opportunity to flip the script and actually learn something live from Tonia here. So the first one is, how do I tackle this if I'm not earning right now?
Okay.
I'm reading that as a question rather than a statement of your negative, Lindsay, but tell me if that's incorrect.
Yeah, I'm hearing that as what's the point of doing this, or like, right, how do you flip that? I mean, it would be good to know if that's a statement or if that's an actual question. And so
it's got a question mark, so I'm assuming she's saying it as she's saying, how do I tackle this topic if I'm not earning right now? But you should still be able to tap into what some of those things are that come up for you, if that's the question, right?
Yeah, because, well, I could, even if it's you don't have money coming in. So I know I asked, like, maybe it's, well, one, that's a negative money belief. So just write that one down, is like, how can I tackle the topic of money if I don't have money coming in? The second thing is, that's why I talk about working on your foundation. This is exactly the point of doing that, because you don't need money to start creating new healthy money habits. And so your money story is a great way to start changing your relationship that you want to have with money. And so it can happen at any point in time. It can happen when money is not coming in, and when there's tons of money coming in. But what this does, and I think it's even more supportive when you're not earning, because this has you now bringing in the element of what you want to attract. So if you're saying a story of how can I change my money circumstances without money, you're going to be perpetuating that story of not earning. That's actually what you're manifesting, is I'm not earning, I'm not earning, I'm not earning. So we want to change that story straight away of I create money. And so if I've answered your question, or if you have another one, just drop it in the chat. But I think money coming in, money going out, whatever it is, there's never a good time for you to be working on your money. You just start doing it when you're ready to, regardless of the amount of money you have coming in or not.
So she says, yes, it was a question. She knows her numbers, but doesn't have a lot going out, and she's not spending much right now because of that. And she says, yes, very true in terms of the feedback that you gave.
Cool.
So she will just give a final shout out for anyone else that wants to throw up one of their negative points. We would love to hear from you. I'll give one of mine that comes up for me, which is, I'm not in control of money. And this is, I've been through a divorce. There's a lot of there's a lot you're not in control of in that situation. And ever since then that's stuck, and I think this is something for me to flip the script on, right?
Yep, absolutely. But that's the whole thing. I think it's just, even in the first one, is just, I find it fun to just be aware of the stories that come up, and just having it. I think one of my stories too is I have to work really hard, or the more money I earn, the harder I have to work. And so it made me not want to earn more money because I don't want to have to work. I don't want more responsibility and having all of that. And I had to really change that if I want to, still be in a place of ease, but yet earning money. And so there's always stories that come up. And that's why I think this is such a great tool, because as you get to another level, there's going to be more stories that come in. And it's just something I want people to be aware of too. Like, this is why I kind of don't like the term fearless. I feel like there is no such thing as fearless. I know that people could appear fearless, but fear is always there. It's just us learning how to become friends with it and just start doing it regardless. I actually used to just follow my fear because I knew that that's where the juicy stuff was. That's where the real power was, when I decided to just earn that. So it's learning to just become friends with the fear and to do it regardless. And instead of being afraid of it, be like, okay, you're coming along with me. And what's the real difference between fear and excitement? They're kind of the same thing. And I think I read a quote once, is that fear is excitement with the absence of breath. And I just thought that that was just great, where it's like, right, fear is excitement, I'm just not breathing. So, and then that's what creates that.
Okay. Well, this is good. Our little bit of conversation has got things flowing a little bit now. We've given people time to respond and have a think about it. So do you want me to read them all in a row or one at a time?
You could read them all in a row.
Okay, so we've got, I don't feel in control of money. With 4 kids, everything seems to cost a lot and I don't spend much on myself at all.
Okay.
The next one is negative story number 4. Money is going to get more and more scarce.
Okay. It's a good one.
Thinking about bills, I can feel resentment about paying a bill. How can I flip that?
Ooh, that's great. These are great.
And limiting belief, earning more than X amount seems out of my reach.
Ooh.
Yeah, been there too. I can relate to all of these.
And they're really great. And here's the other thing too. They're true. Like, when we're in that situation, it's like, that's the reality of what we're in. But like, that's why it's so important to flip this script, because how are we ever going to get out of this situation if we just keep repeating these things, and our words are what create our reality? And so thank you all for your vulnerability and for sharing your negative beliefs and just being courageous enough to just put them out there, because I know it turns the stomach a little bit talking about this topic and just really, allowing that vulnerability to come out when it comes to money. And I just thank you for allowing me to just hear those and play with you guys around it. And now what I would love to do with the statements that were said is just give you now a positive story and show you what it is to now flip the script on your negative beliefs. Here is the other thing that tends to come up too, is I'm not a big believer in fake it till you make it kind of thing. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, isn't this faking it till you make it? And I don't think it is. I think that this is a calling in and an asking for something different. I don't think it's a faking it. I think any emotions that come up, actually what these new statements do is they allow all of the beliefs of what you can have come up by creating the new money stories. And when they do, just acknowledge them and put them to rest. Like, that's the whole thing. It's just showing you what's standing in the way of the actual life that you want to live. So it might feel uncomfortable, or that you're even lying to yourself when you rewrite these new money statements, but that's the whole point. In your body, you feel like you can't have it. And that's actually what you're creating. So how is money going to come in if you're all contracted when you're saying the statements of the reality of what you want? So what we're doing is really prepping your body to receive. And this is a big topic, receptivity, that doesn't get talked about, that when money comes, we could say no to opportunities because we almost get scared and then we turn them away. So these new money beliefs are actually already starting to have us be in a receptive mode of creating it. So when it comes in, we're like, yes, I've been waiting for you. Like, I knew you were coming. And then we know that they were coming in. So Holly, if you can now read them to me one at a time, and then I'm just going to give a positive spin on it so that you all could see what that's like.
Okay, so the first one was, I don't feel in control of money. With 4 kids, everything seems to cost a lot and I don't spend that much on myself at all.
Okay. I feel like those could be 5 different statements. So we could do, and I do want to break them out into statements. They're all very juicy pieces. So the first one is I don't spend a lot on myself.
I don't feel in control of money.
I don't feel in control of money. I'm in control of money. It's just that simple. So that would be that part of it, is I'm in control of money. And then what was the other part of it?
With 4 kids, everything seems to cost a lot. And then the last bit is I don't spend that much on myself at all.
The other one, the one with the I don't spend much on myself at all, is I spend on myself. It's just that, and I would even say responsibly. I'm trying to think now of the spin on with the 4 kids. I have enough to live comfortably with 4 kids. So I am in control of my money. I have enough to live comfortably with 4 kids and spend on myself. And so that would be the positive spin on that statement.
So one of the things that I find whenever I'm flipping a script on something is sometimes it takes a little bit of a while before you can really believe that. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're saying it. So what would you give if that's kind of the response that anyone has to their positive statement?
That's why when doing these, this was going to be the homework as well, was to keep reading these over, because part of what you want to see is the other story that's running of what are you really saying that that's actually not your reality. So the whole point of it is to really bring in compassion when you're reading these, and to really listen to the story of, is it a worthiness thing that's coming up? Is it you can't do that? Because these are all of the things that are actually blocking you from having that statement. That's why it's so important to flip the script, because this is step 1 of you creating that life. Because now you're actually inviting all of the emotions and things to come up. So I would just say it's normal for it not to feel comfortable, but to kind of, what we're doing is we're laying down a new habit. So if you could just read them every morning and then visualize it, because that's the other thing. It's just because your mind, it's not primed in your mind. So if you're reading the statement, put a picture to it so that your mind is now seeing something different besides the reality of what you see in your everyday. You want to give it a new picture, which will make it work out better to stick that belief with. That's why I usually do foundation. I do vision in the second part, because it makes it hard with just the statement. But once we start planting the new seed in the third eye and we see it in our minds, your mind really doesn't know the difference between reality of what you're living and if you're visioning. That's why visioning is such an important tool. So maybe while you're reading the statement over, close your eyes and see that reality. And that might make it easier for your body to be like, oh, wow, we can have this, and make it easier to kind of go into that.
Do you find as well with your clients that so often the positive story is something they're already doing? So for example, in this example with 4 kids, everything seems to cost a lot, and you've flipped that to be I think it, sorry if I get this not word for word, but it was something along the lines of, I have enough to take care of 4 kids and I'm doing that well, because the reality is you are, but your mind is on the negative side of the coin constantly, right?
Yep, exactly. And so again, this is literally learning how to get yourself out of a scarcity mindset and start living in an abundant one, where you're starting to realize you're probably doing a lot of this and that it already exists, but we just, we're sometimes cannot be the best at being our own cheerleaders and celebrating and just really acknowledging ourselves. And so it is about that, where it's like, some of them might just be that we're like, I'm already doing this, which is amazing, because then that's just kudos.
Okay, so the next one up is money is going to get more and more scarce.
Money is going to get more and more abundant.
Oh, I'm sensing there's going to be a lot of resistance to this one right now.
And there is, because a lot of it could feel like you're just like, oh, so we're just going to take the magic wand and rewrite it. Yes. And the whole tool of it is that it's going to bring up all of these negative things, because the reality of it is, this is the reality you want to live in. So your emotions are what's blocking you. So yeah, the resistance is real. And that's why we're doing that, because the only way to start creating the life you want is to get out of the negative and into the positive. And I'm not saying to, there's a saying when you start doing spiritual work that some people could live in positivity, and it's called spiritual bypassing. And that's not what I'm saying to do. Is I'm acknowledge the emotions that are coming up, feel them, but start saying in your mind the actual reality that you want to live in, like, because that's what true abundance is seeing all that there is versus all that isn't. And when flipping the script, as you're seeing what I'm doing, it's just taking out the negative statement and flipping it with the positive one.
So the next one, thinking about bills, I can feel resentment about paying a bill. How can I flip that?
They're gonna love this one. I feel gratitude when paying bills. I am grateful when I pay bills. So a way to do this, and this is actually something I teach with my clients, it's usually when we start talking about debt. I believe that money is a way to say thank you. And it's the way that I started to flip my relationship with money and why I see it as a positive one. Money is just a currency. It was created so that we could give a monetary value for something that we're getting in return, because you can't do a cow for a sheet anymore. Like, it just wasn't working out anymore. It is literally a way for us just to say thank you. Like, thank you for that cup of coffee. Here is my $3 for that cup of coffee. So the same concept works when you put gratitude on it. It changes the way you pay your bills. Thank you. You put your rent check in, and regardless of if you could afford it or not, like, thank you for the roof over your head. So instead of looking at the negative experience of it and what the pain is causing, look at it like, thank you for this roof over my head. Con Ed, or your electric bill, right? Because different companies in different areas, when you're paying your electric bill, thank you for my electricity. You're paying your gas bill, thank you for this heat. You're paying your phone bill. Wow, look at all the people that I get to communicate with because of this phone bill. So instead of looking at all the pain it's bringing in, possibly look at all the gain that you've gotten for it as well. And it starts to turn your paying your bills into a positive one.
Yeah, I'm reminded of there's an advert on YouTube at the moment. It's probably because I've been typing in financial things this week on all my posts or something. I don't know. And it's the number one, I don't know, I can't think of his name, but he's apparently the number one financial expert in Japan. And his number one tip that he starts with, that he teaches everyone, is have gratitude for your money, have gratitude for what you spend. He said, like, if you do nothing else, this one practice will transform your relationship with money.
Yep, it's just shining the gratitude on it. It's the quickest way to abundance, is just seeing all that you have. Yeah.
So the next one is earning more than X amount seems out of reach. This is one that I know so many people will relate to, and it reminds me of when I was younger. And I remember going to that next salary band. It was something I'd never even imagined I could earn, and feeling like, oh my God, I must be going to be terrible at this job then if I'm going to have this money.
Yeah, and it is real, because like it's feeling so out of control. But I mean, you know, it's simple. Earning this amount of money is in my reach. Because
And
until it becomes a comfortable statement, we might not we might block that opportunity from coming because of the uncomfort that it is and the fear that's around it. I'm sorry, you were saying something, Holly. I cut you off.
I was just going to say, would you take it deeper than that, or would you just keep it really simple? Because I know for me, there would be a tendency to maybe justify why.
Oh, we froze for a second. Yeah, I was like waiting. When is it going to come back? Okay, so I heard the last thing you saying was justify it.
Yeah, for me, there would I'm thinking back, and probably even now a little bit, there might be a tendency to try and justify why that positive statement.
In what way? So give me an example then.
So the statement you said was earning X amount of money is within my reach because, and then I would try and add to it. Is that overcomplicating it? Is that still a little bit negative?
No, I mean, from what I've learned, anytime that we need to justify anything, it's because we have a low sense of worth and we don't believe it. And so anytime we have to justify anything we do, it's because we honestly don't believe what that is. But I don't think that there's anything wrong if that's the next step that we need in order to get there. I think that the words just have to be, make sure that they're positive. Like it could be, and it could be that this really the next step is about gaining the confidence to have that. So it could be like I'm, you know, earning that amount of money is within my reach because I am a hard worker. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, with celebrating yourself in a statement, but just having it be justified. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. As long as you're saying that to yourself and that it's something that's boosting along. But there is something to learning that sometimes when we feel justifying, we're still trying to prove something to ourselves. But they're all baby steps, right? So if we need to use that first, but then after we do, know that we don't need to justify anything because we were born worthy, whole, and complete. And so we don't, but if that's the next step, then there's nothing wrong with that, and just do the next step. And so thank you for adding that, because I don't think that there's anything wrong with putting that statement in if that's what it's what about makes that statement feel like it's correct for you, or that it feels authentic to you.
Yeah, I just think the worthiness piece comes up so often for so many people.
Yep.
And so it's worth just laboring it a little bit, because, you know, that lack of worth, sometimes it comes, particularly for women. I find most men will go into something and they'll charge ahead, and they don't have this fear of failure that women have. And they also don't look for the same level of validation from outside themselves. So I'd say if you are experiencing any, then really try to validate from within, validate yourself rather than look for it outside yourself.
Exactly.
Try to look for the points that you can in your history. Oh, we've frozen again. I think we froze again there.
I heard you though.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
So yeah, look for those points to validate yourself.
Absolutely.
Rather than look for the outside world to give it to you.
Yep.
And you will find there are many, many reasons why you can validate yourself and say, hey, I am worthy, and I know I am because of this. But that feeling of unworthiness comes from maybe some stuff when I was younger. You know, we talked about trauma the other week, and the reason I talked about that is because I firmly believe that most of us have a deep sense of unworthiness at the root of many, many, many of our issues. And it usually comes up as I'm not good enough, I'm bad, or I'm not, for a lot of people. And, you know, I think as women as well, and this is another important point to make, not to be, you know, jumping down a feminist route or anything, but men have a history of being in powers of position. Women don't. Our legacy, the ideas that we have inherited, have been around being in the home. And that creates, on an energetic level, a lot of conflict inside of us. You know, if you're a woman that's in the world of work, and particularly if you have children or you're thinking about children later on in your life, this worthiness issue tends to come up in your 30s, like for everybody, because it's the time when you have to make choices around stuff. So, you know, in terms of the unworthiness, just dig in a little bit and see the ideal is the male image, particularly for anyone that works in a male dominated field, because there's often lots of hidden beliefs there as well in the story. Oh no, I think we've frozen again.
The picture is freezing, but I hear you. So as long as I could hear what you're saying, that's fine. I heard everything that you said around that. And I think that you just really were able to put it in a soundbite of why doing these money beliefs are so important. It's because it's working on our worthiness of what we believe we can have. And yes, these statements are going to feel uncomfortable because we feel we are unworthy of them. So I'm just going to give everyone a statement to put on to your positive statements. I am worthy. And it doesn't have to do with anything that you do. And I love, Holly, that you mentioned too, like if you need to put in extra information, make sure that you're validating yourself, because that's really all that matters. It's the most important thing. And like, that's why it's a stage when it comes to money. That's what flow is all about. It's about you learning that you are your most important tool, and you are the only thing that needs to validate yourself. And then from there, The world is your oyster. And so really doing this, and then the thing that I want you all to do tonight that I'm going to follow up on Thursday is these money statements now that you flipped into positive ones. I want you to write down, and I want you to write them down with the energy of play, with the energy of joy, embrace the spirit of a kid, get some crayons, put them on an index card, just be really fun. And I want you to rewrite them in a spot and on something in a fun way, and put it somewhere that you're going to see them every day, because they aren't going to feel comfortable at first. But the whole point is that we're creating this new reality. So we want to have them, and like I said, in a joyful, we want to infuse it with the energy of fun, of play, of joy. And if you want to, I invite you to share pictures of your new statements in the Facebook group of them if you want to. And if you find that you're having difficulty switching them into positive ones, this is something we could talk about again on Thursday. So just write them down. Don't worry about getting it right or wrong. Play with it, have fun with it. And if you want to share them in the Facebook group for everyone to just see the, the fun artwork that you did, and read them every day so that you could really start to believe into the reality of what it is that you want to create for yourself, and start really having your mind be ready for all of that juicy goodness that's coming in, and to raise your worth, because that's what has money really start coming in, is when we believe that we're worthy of all of life's gifts and joys and money.
Can you just repeat that, because that was so awesome? I feel like you need to say that last sentence again.
See if I remember it. It was like, the worthiness is the very important piece, because it's when we feel worthy that we accept that we are worthy of all of life's gifts, of life's joys, of life's money, of the happiness, because it's our worth that invites that in. And we are all worthy of that right here, right now.
Mm-hmm. And this goes right back to the very first lesson that I did on values. And I wrote a little social media post the other day that I haven't quite put out there yet, but it was quoting myself from that session. I said, the world will value you when you value yourself.
Yes.
Okay. So all of that work we did in the beginning on your values, go back and look at your values as part of this, and remind yourself about, what are the things you're passionate about? What do you stand for? They are the value you add in the world. They're not just your personal values. They are the value that you put out there. And that's following that is a big piece in this, in pulling this stuff together. So, all of these sessions that each of the teachers are doing, they all interlink like this. In a totally spaghetti way, not in any ordered way, but there's all seeds that will connect for you.
Oh, I love that.
So Helen Maria says, that's really powerful. It might almost make you think, who do you want to say thank you to?
I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. I love that. And yeah, how many people can you say thank you to this week as you go through this?
Yeah. And you could say it out loud, and you could say it silently when your hands money. And then also, just on a note of that, every time you give with gratitude, when people give to you, it starts to come back in gratitude.
It does. Absolutely. I've certainly experienced that myself. And, just the attitude that you hold can have such a powerful effect on what you attract in life and what you create in life, and the serendipitous moments that happen for you. In career coaching, we have this thing called happenstance, and I love it because this word means it's a little bit deeper than, say, serendipity or chance, or that person was in the right place at the right time. Right. Happenstance is like, when you put yourself in the path where opportunities can come to you, that's when happenstance happens. That's when opportunities that you weren't expecting can flow to you. But if you never step outside the front door, if you keep yourself locked away, then you can't. So it's really about holding that attitude. That's what happenstance is to me. So yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
Any final thoughts for tonight, Tonia, before we close? Because we've run over by about 5 minutes.
Yeah, we have. Sorry about that. No, I just want everyone to really understand the power of themselves, and that when it comes to money, money is neutral. Money is a form of love. Money is a way to say thank you. And when we start to give with gratitude, that's when the money starts to really come in. And it doesn't matter about how much you have coming in. That starts with $1. It starts with anything. And that we are the tools, we are the power. Like that is, and that money is just a tool and has nothing to do with your worthiness. It has absolutely nothing to do with, yeah, money has absolutely nothing to do with your worthiness. You choose who you are and what you're worthy of. And then from there, money starts to respond. And so have fun tonight creating your statements or over the week and creating them. And I cannot wait to see them. And just thank you all for your money vulnerability and sharing your money beliefs and everything with me, and just, yeah, spending time with me.
So you've got lots of thank yous from the group. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. Thank you. Looking forward to turning this around.
Yes.
And yeah, I just echo what Tonia said. I'm so looking forward to hearing from you on Thursday. Do put it in the diary, 6 o'clock in the UK, 1 p.m. in Eastern time. And do turn up live for it, because like I said, it's your opportunity to put your real experiences out there and get real help for it.
Exactly.
And you know, a lot will come up as you work through this worksheet, particularly if you've never done it before. I mean, I think 5 is a great number because there's not too many and not too few, but I know I could certainly write another 20 off each of those as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
You know, and that's how it is. It's like peeling the onion. You get through one layer and then the next layer comes, and that's life. Like that's the process of evolution, right?
Exactly.
So it's not a bad thing. It's not like this is a never-ending issue, but when something needs to shift, that issue will come up and rise to the surface for you to let go of and to move through. So thank you all for the brilliant participation tonight. Thank you, Tonia, for being an amazing host, for sharing with us the message that money is a tool. It's not what you're worth.
Exactly.
It's not it doesn't relate to your level of worthiness, because we are all born worthy and brilliant. And if all had gone right, we all would have had our light reflected back at us, and we would really know this at our core. So money is just a tool. It's not a reflection of your worth, is my big takeaway from that.
I love that. I'm just gonna leave it on that. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great rest of the day or evening, everyone. Thanks again, Tonia.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you to the awesome audience, and we will see you on Thursday. Take care. Bye.